and also allow customers to basically follow their train like an Uber and to try to mimic that customer experience to the extent possible. Next. So in support of that, we installed GPS antennas on basically every piece of equipment that we operate, one per inseparable piece of equipment, so married, pair, coach, locomotive. And these antennas were actually independent of pretty much any of the car-borne systems that were already on the car, and they update about every 5 seconds. Next. So with that, we built a tool called mylirr.org, and you can access it on the web now. It was basically what you see in these screenshots. It's a no-frills ability for you to find your train and see where it is on a map. Because of the precision of the GPS, where we have train pings every 5 or 7 seconds for every single pair on an 8 to 12 car train, we actually have about 2 or 3 second granularity. And as such, we had enough precision to actually draw the cars on the map, as you see in the bottom there, and that's actually more or less to scale. Okay. So we actually were thinking of what type of information the customer would want to see when they used our system. And back in 2018, 2019, we were breaking ridership records every year. We were approaching the limit of our equipment and our line capacity. And one of the places we thought we could really eke out some extra capacity was even out loading in the cars. Because of the layout of our stations, we had a lot of unevenly loaded trains, and we wanted to try to persuade people to go to the other part of the train. And one of that thing was real-time crowding information. Next. So most of our fleet, the M7 fleet, is a multiple unit fleet. By FRA guidelines, it's a locomotive, it's self-propelled, it's got its own propulsion and braking control. And just like any such unit that requires that control, it must know the weight of what it's hauling. So it actually has its own weight sensors, measured by using the airbag pressures on the truck, as you see there. We had to get it off the car. So we basically took advantage of the existing wayside to, not really wayside, the existing car-to-wayside network to get that information off the car with a change order. And we initiated this process in early 2019. Next. We actually have a newer fleet called an M9, and those were designed in this factory with standard APC counters, much like you would see on a bus. In retrospect, we actually found those counters are far less accurate than straight out using loadway, mainly because any error that you get from one count just adds up over the whole trip, while loadway basically measures from scratch with everything.
So we wanted to take all this data and put it into a mobile app after the success of mylirr.org. So in summer 2019, we started making some mock-ups for designs for that native app. These are those early designs. And then we set out and built that app in React Native. We had a beta working pretty well in December of 2019. And emphasis on the word beta here, because you can see on the right screenshot, there were definitely bugs in there. And we wanted to get it out to customers to iron all those out and test it more. So when we were thinking about how to get this out to customers, we immediately thought of Train Time, which was our existing trip planning app, and it had pre-pandemic 70,000 daily active users. So we talked to the higher-ups. We said, can we take over Train Time? But unfortunately, they said no. So we had to get the app out in a different channel. So we released mylirr to the iOS App Store in December under a different developer account, not the official one. And here are some more screenshots of what it looked like at the time. We added a couple more features, such as the consist view on the left and a feature to find nearby trains. You can see that on the right. My friend who lives in Germany actually texted me about this, and he's like, wow, this feature is crazy. Like, they don't even do this in Germany. So we were really excited about stuff like that. And again, in early 2020, we asked, can we take over train time? And at this time, we got a better answer. They said, yes, you can do it. And we had a soft release date of February or March in 2020. But then we all know what happened in March last year. So to be continued. At the same time, Sunny's going to talk about some of the signage, which was also underway in parallel.
So the signage project actually began well before the pandemic, and we actually had these were replacements for legacy LED they're LED screens that were actually failing pretty quickly. So we thought we would use some modern designs, keeping the limitations of the data that we had available to us, and we built some of these designs to be more understandable to the customer. They were very strip map based. And they actually included ETA information, which is something that we actually didn't have at Jamaica because it was a manually operated station. But as you can see on the bottom there, we started showing connections in a graphical form to reduce the amount of text shown. And we generally got pretty positive acclaim for these. These actually started rolling out at the height of the pandemic, believe it or not, and we've been fine-tuning them since. Next. So, why is this you or me?
I can take it. So at this point, once the pandemic happened, we realized how important this crowding information was. And we had already been working on it for pretty much a year in advance, but this really expedited that process.
Well, to be clear, we were waiting for that change order.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And so, Sunny, talk about how we were expecting the data in June, right? And we expedited it.
So we were originally going to, back in February, we originally said we would launch the version with the crowding data in August. But we were able to get Bombardier to accelerate the software, to accelerate the testing, and accelerate the deployment, given that so much of our fleet was not in service at the time, and we were able to get the data off of some cars about early in May. Next slide.
So basically in June, we absolutely sprinted. Well, in May, in the time leading up to June, we sprinted to polish up the app, get the real-time crowding features working using mock data, and transition the branding over to train time now that we had the all clear to take over train time. And if you've ever seen a GitHub contribution graph, this is about as scary as they get. You can see how much code we wrote in May. But then, Sunny.
So we started getting data in early May, but this was pressure data. This wasn't really passenger counts. This was just the raw pressure. So we actually had to go out and figure out what the correlation was to actual passenger counts. We had our field supervisors take counts of maybe half a dozen trains of each car, and we had half a dozen trains times 12 cars. That's 2 dozen points that we could use to form a correlation. Thankfully, it was pretty much linear, and we were able to implement that algorithm fairly quickly and start feeding the live data into the app. We had a brief setback, but for about a week, but we were able to get the data into the app by the end of May. Next slide. And we launched the app with a press conference on June 16th, 2020, which was a week after we had started our increase of service. Next.
So basically, this is what we presented in June. This is the old train time, and we showed how riders were going to see a very familiar look, but completely new in the new train time. We're going to go into a demo a little bit later to show all the features, but one of the most important features of the app was the platform diagram.
So we realized that crowding information and knowing which cars are full or empty is of limited utility to solve the uneven loading problem unless you happen to know where they are. So we realized that we had a relatively consistent stopping system across all stations for the most part, And we started compiling those stopping location data as well as data from our GIS team, which had went out and basically geolocated the start and end of all the platforms. So with that, we were able to plot the incoming train against the platform, as well as your location on the platform prior to the train's arrival, and thus let customers position themselves on the platform accordingly. Next.
So after we released it in June, we got lots of great customer feedback and even some requests for some more features. So we continued to develop the app, build it out, and see what we could do with the data that we were collecting. So for example,
we started getting real-time data. We were storing it we had a few months of it. So we realized that why don't we show historical loading for trains? And we just did some simple aggregation. This was just median load over the past week. And we were able to present that information to the customer in the trip planning phase for the future prior to the train actually departing, so they would know which train to take. Next. And at the same time, we realized we wanted to get this information across basically every sign that we had that had the ability to show it. So everywhere we could, with the deployment of our new signage in Jamaica and outlying stations, we included crowding information as granular as the sign would let us show. So for instance, the sign in the bottom right is a legacy system. We couldn't show colors. We couldn't show precise positioning. We had to use ASCII characters, so we decided just to use pound signs and dashes. But we tried to show it in any way possible. Next. We also included it in our new announcement head end for the automated announcements across outlying stations. And Ryan, try playing this clip. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it.
I might need to re-share with sound enabled.
Okay, but we basically have an announcement clip that announces
Did it play or no?
No, it did not.
Okay, hold on. One second. Could you reassign the share, please?
Andy?
My apologies. Should I who should I reassign it to?
To me, yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Just one moment. Let's see.
So in the meantime, yeah, we're getting a couple questions in the chat. Yes, the pressure sensors we found to be sensitive to basically plus or minus 3 people. So we were able to just take that number and divide it against the number of seats in the car.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Share computer sound. Okay, give this a try.
The 8:26 train to Ronkonkoma will arrive in 6 minutes on track 1. There are more seats available towards the front of the train.
So we have an uneven loading. So we have an uneven loading.
Oh gosh.
Hello?
I know there's an echo now.
Yeah, let's see. Let me try something.
I wish there was a way to like
see. Try it now, Sonny.
Okay.
So, what was I going to say? If we have an uneven loading situation, those announcements will now play. We were also able to take advantage of this crowd data for various internal purposes. We save about $100,000 a year in cost of sending contractors out to do passenger counts on our electric fleet, which is 90% of our service. So that's a tangible savings. And we were also able to allow operations to real-time monitor loads on trains, so I'll just better adjust service accordingly. Next. So we also have this view, which is basically mylr.org for all trains at the same time, which lets you quickly see the state of the system as an employee and find service. Next.
We're pretty proud to see that our relative usage of train time has increased with the new train time. For example, pre-pandemic with the old train time, we were seeing that about 23% of riders were using it, and now we're seeing about 34% are using the new app. And that's on a given day. For example, like somebody might not use the app every day, so we're pretty happy with that number. And 4.7 star rating on the App Store, so people are enjoying it. And here is a list of most of the features in the app, which we're going to demo some of these now.
Any quick questions? Yeah, I would say any quick questions now, and then we can do the demo before we go into any more app-specific questions.
I was actually really curious about whether you're able to get the loading on a car-by-car level or on a sub-car level, because some of the recordings sounded like it was sub-car.
So,
like the front of the car versus the back of the car.
We receive the data on a well, we technically receive the pressure data on, we get front and back of car, but in order to achieve a level of granularity that's actually usable to the customer, we added those two up, so we report numbers internally and to the public on a car-by-car basis. But of course, with most of our trains being 6 to 12 cars, you're able to say the front of this train is empty or the back of the train, or vice versa.
And you want to take the, so regarding Metro North, they actually did use part of our code base to implement this for themselves.
Metro North.
The reason they did it separately was because their data pipeline is quite different.
And so Metro North actually took basically our change order for the M7 fleet and applied it to theirs. They're working on getting something built out for the M8 fleet, which is a different vendor that we don't use.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can go ahead. You have more questions?
Yeah, just one. I'm a former LIRR rider. My stop was Forest Hills, and so you have to be in the first 4 cars to exit. Does the app know that that's my primary stop if I tell it, and then will tell me I need to be in a certain car?
So, yeah. So we do have that information of which cars platform where, and that's one of the things of our railroad is we're a lot more subway-like than virtually every other commuter railroad in this country. So train stop at consistent positions. So you know it's going to be the first. Now it's 6 cars based on the platform. You know it's going to be the first 6 cars all the time, no matter what. So we know which are the first 6 cars, and we can display that to you accordingly. Ryan, if you want to demo this for Forest Hills, we have
although the train does not have a full consist yet, so we don't have.
Yeah, some trains have data issues, but there's in grand scheme of things, not that many of them.
Oh no, I see it right there. Doors will not open. Beautiful.
The first 6 cars.
Beautiful. That's really impressive. Where were you guys a couple of years ago?
Ryan, log out before you give this demo, please.
What do I have to do?
Log out before you give this demo, please.
Oh yes. We'll show you at the end, but we do have some employee features, which we're going to save for now. All right, so we'll just start here on the Trips tab. It's a very familiar look to the old train time. That's what we were going for. I mean, it's your standard origin, destination, and swap. We took these design cues from like Apple Maps and Google Maps. You'll see that throughout the app, stuff that we liked from different apps. And once you tap on one of these trains,
before we even get there,
yeah, and you can see the
one thing we notice with a lot of users. One thing we notice is go back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of users just stick to this page because they're familiar with the old paper timetables that we used to have with the station-to-station combinations. So a lot of people just open the app, press swap, and find the next train and don't do anything. Believe it or not, that's most of our users don't actually go into the next page. But if you do, there's a lot of stuff to be had. Ryan, open the train.
Yeah. So back to the detail page. The most important thing here is the map. Like that's really the focus of it.
you can see the real-time location, and if you zoom all the way in, you can see that concept moving every second. And that's like plus or minus 2 seconds, I think, like where the train would be. So it is very accurate. If we pull this card back up again, you'll see we have, it's a standard like trip outline here, but the crowding was something new. We took that from Next There. It's an app based in Sydney. I really like their design of the train cars and the crowding. So I took that one. And then if you tap on that, you'll get the full platform view, which shows the platform, any circulation elements such as ramps, elevators, and escalators, as well as the crowding, both with colors and numerically. We're doing intervals of 5 right now, and as well as the car number. This is really important because connecting the digital information with the physical world, we've had an initiative to put car numbers on more visible places inside the cars so that you can actually see what car you're in and match it to the app. And then one other interesting thing here with the short platforms is that in this case, my origin is Freeport, and it'll show you at your origin.
Oh, we have a dead escalator.
Oh, broken escalator, yeah. It'll show you at your origin that you don't want to get in those last 4 cars because otherwise you won't be able to get off at Forest Hills. And I can't demo the location feature right now, but if you're standing on the platform, we'll show a blue dot where you're standing. And this is really accurate. It's like within a half a car. So if you're shooting to get in a certain car, you will be where you need to be.
Okay.
Stop. There's alerts,
Bookmarking.
which are not super helpful, but
Bookmarking.
we're working on that. Bookmarking. So if I bookmark a trip, it'll show up in this tab. And nearby trains, which isn't going to return anything, but that's a cool feature too. Should we go into search?
Let's do share, and then we'll do search.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the trips tab, to the train I was viewing. We have a couple more buttons here. We have one is the notify button, and these are the 2 notification modes we support right now. You may know that at Penn Station, we only post the track about 10 minutes before departure, just for operational reasons. And so we used to have people standing around the board waiting for their track to get posted. And now that we've added this, it's literally as soon as they post it. We've done tests with this, like see it come up 5 seconds, if even, you'll get a notification on your phone what track it's on. And that way you can stand anywhere you want in Penn. But it's also for track changes at outlying stations or if the train status changes, such as being held or canceled. And then an e-tickets link, if I tap that, it'll go to our mobile ticketing app and a share button, which is pretty cool. It'll share a link to the app, but you can also view it on mylirr.org if you don't have the app.
Okay.
Let's
breeze through some of this in the nature of time. So my trips.
Yep. So my trips, we went over most of that. A new feature is just searching by any car number. So our newest fleet, the M9s, they all start with 90, and we can just see where they all are. And
this is basically the intended use case of this is basically a poor man's alternative to nearby trains, because we find that only about 30% of our users actually enable location services. So if you want to say, okay, I'm in car 7012, you look up, you see the car number, and you just type it in and get the train you're on. Stations tab. Stations tab is just the departures view, basically. So if you go to a random station, you can see the next trains in each direction for 45 minutes. Nothing really more there.
Yeah.
Radar.
This public-facing station radar. which it'll show you all the inbound trains for a given station. It's interesting. we actually put a television screen at Jamaica that does the same thing. So now people can access it in the app for any station. And then we have just station info, which could also be improved a little bit, but that's the basic stuff.
Okay, let's go to the More tab and let's go piece by piece on this one. So the first thing, so the top, we used a vendor called Intercom to do basically customer support chat, standard third-party integration, text chat. Not much more there.
I don't know, not much else.
You can change the language. We support Spanish, Chinese, and Korean. That's about it. If you do employee login, so if you do login, I think it lines up authenticate.
That's okay.
So we allow employees to log in, which allows them access to a small handful of additional features, including viewing the speed of the train, viewing a version of radar like the radar that I showed in the screenshot that has basically every train on it. And I think that's it, Nora. Anything else?
I gotta pause it. Hold on. Hopefully it's paused. And I'm back. Okay, so now we are in employee mode.
Employee mode is, we don't have, we're planning on implementing a lot more employee functions than this, but so for now we have a version of radar that shows every train at once.
Basically the radar we showed in the slides, but on your phone, and you can tap on the train and
in the My Trips view, in the My Trips tab, you can search for any car that's actively pinging, whether or not it's on a train.
Search 90. You're going to see some results here that say just near Long Beach, or if it's in a yard, it'll say yard as well.
Yeah, just do 76 or 7. Yeah. So you see the cars that are just laid up. If they're powered on, you're able to see them. In this case, it's just a pair sitting by the shop. Yeah, and that's about it for employee stuff. Yeah. Ryan, if you really want, you could demo the Siri.
Okay, that's like one little fun thing I implemented. It was Siri shortcut support. So actually, the best way to do this is I can use the Add to Siri button. Demo train time. So this is just like the invocation phrase here. Users can set that to whatever they want. That's standard with Siri shortcuts. And the action that's going to be run, it pre-fills in these parameters for you, and it'll basically do a trip search for right now, all within Siri. So demo train time. And there you go, you have all the results. And the app does not have to be open for this. In fact, your phone can be locked, and you can just say that, and it will find the train for you.
Okay, we do have 10 minutes remaining, so I do want to allow some time for additional questions. The change order was for Bombardier in order to communicate the loadway information from the internal car computer over the car-to-wayside network to get that into a central server. Any other questions?
Yes, Sonny, I have a question. Can you talk about the organizational buy-in that you had to make this happen?
Jeff, you asked us in New York. I'm not going to answer it here. Oh, I will say that we, the dashboard and many of the crowding tools have gotten great reception from our operating folks, and they are finding it handy to monitor service more effectively. Anybody else? Not when we have an open floor for 10 minutes, I guess, which is fine. TransportationCamp. So org buy-in, we do have internal users, largely our dispatch folks, largely operations who are able to make better use of the data they have, whether it's seeing how full trains are around the system or real-time OTP, being able to see at a glance how the system is running. We have gotten numerous feature requests from our operational department. Cost. This is a tough one. I don't even have a rough estimate anywhere near me at this point. It certainly was not an astronomical cost in terms of the change order was not expensive because it did not involve additional hardware. It was really a software change. And the app development was done largely, almost entirely in-house. The costs were not significant. I don't have even a rough range available, sorry. One of the things I want to stress is, since you seem to have a bit of a lull in questions, is a lot of people have come to us asking about implementing similar things on their own agencies. And while the crowding information is fairly, nowadays, especially with COVID, fairly standard, I will say that there are a lot of characteristics of our network that lend themselves very well to this type of a display that might not apply to other networks. So, for instance, I mentioned trains stopping in consistent locations and opening consistent number of cars. That's generally not always true. Also, do you want to? Yeah, consistent number of cars. Lost my train of thought. Ryan, if you want to show. One second. This is a good example.
You show a diesel.
Yeah, pull up Bellport. Actually, no, that doesn't have loading. Pull up Amagansett eastbound. Station view, but Amagansett to Montauk is fine.
Too late.
That's finished. So,
and that's in spotted car.
Yeah, the two-car platform. The rear two cars don't open in Montauk. Good example of that. Even though the stopping position may be approximate in this case, we actually have the rules for which number of cars open, which allow us to make the approximation at least accurate enough so you don't board a car that doesn't open.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, Andy, I don't know if you want to take it back from here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, again, very, very interesting. I guess I have a question, Sunny, since you're pretty familiar with SEPTA. I'd say you're pretty familiar with the SEPTA app, correct?
The SEPTA app, I am not.
You're not, okay.
Yes.
Okay, great, okay. I was going to ask, how does this, well, basically, what could we at SEPTA learn from this? I guess just in general, what could other transit agencies learn the most from what you've done with train time?
I guess there are several things here. The most important is think carefully about what your customers actually want. The app here is very tailored to the needs of our riders, whether it be the way we present connections or or the way we show information. So, for instance, I guess it's not really a case in SEPTA, but we have data out there, and we end up with a lot of complaints to our frontline employees. It's not really our online; it's our station agents and our train crews, because they're using other apps which happen to be presenting incorrect connection information. Usually not incorrect schedule information because the times are the same, but incorrect connection information, incorrect trip plan information. So, for instance, one of the things that we have, and I guess SEPTA, I don't know if you guys have the same issue, is when you go to Google Maps, it'll say, for instance, if I'm in Lansdale, it'll say take a Doylestown line train to Philadelphia. And one of the issue with that is we have a problem where if people show up at Jamaica coming from JFK, and it says take a Babylon train to Penn Station, they get on the eastbound to Babylon. And I don't know if that happens a lot in SEPTA. This is a fairly standard thing among commuter railroads to name lines after termini. So that's one of the things that we actually go to great pains to show properly. And if you go back to the homepage, Ryan, the way we do the head signs.
Yeah, I'll show a transfer.
Yeah, so we see the branch of the train we actually do still indicate by the color, just so people know. Eek, not that.
We were trying to avoid that. Yeah,
there's
some track work this weekend.
Yeah, we have some complicated track work that results in multiple transfers and multiple buses. But if you do Hempstead to Penn or Valley Stream to Penn, you'll see. So it says the colors will match what you see in the station.
But the key here is like if I do westbound, we show the branch color, but we're still identifying it by where the train is going.
Yeah. Yeah, some other little things. For example, this is track 7. If you did from Garden City, it'll say platform A because we use A and B at those stations. That's it. That's basically what it is. Like, make sure that what you're giving to the customer is A, what they're actually looking for, and B, what they what matches what they'll see when they go to the station.
Great. Yeah, because I know with the SEPTA app, we have no information on passenger crowding, and so that's something that some of us are looking at. So definitely your app could be a good model for that.
So one of the things with passenger crowding and SEPTA, I think, the tricky thing with regional rail, as I alluded to, is regional rail is a lot more free-form than us. Which cars open is largely up to the discretion of the crew. And that's information we don't really have to convey. And in fact, we launched this app in June. We haven't, on paper, we haven't been allowing crews to close cars since March of 2020. So we actually don't have that functionality built in yet. It's going to have to be some heuristics we build in eventually when that rule returns.
Great. Okay, so the time is now 2:20. Any last words to add?
I don't have anything. Go download the app, play with it, check out. Don't forget LIRR.org; it still exists. Yeah.
Great. Well, Sonny and Ryan, thank you so much. Really good presentation. So for those of you who are here for mentoring transportation professionals for the 4th session, that's going to be in this very same room. So don't go anywhere.
All right, thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Sure, take care.